Hi everyone, it's CricketSong and with another video. And in today's video I want to talk about psychic attachments like psychic ties, cords, tethers. The reason why I wanted to talk about this is it's been a lot on my mind lately because I've been struggling with interpersonal relationships with people, family, friends, and just finding that I've been really drained, that I've been sort of giving and my well or my font of energy has felt very depleted, which got me to thinking and evaluating where my energy is being spent and what I need to do in order to replenish that font of energy within me, which led me to look at the relationships I have with people and places and items even. Where is my energy being spent? Which got me to consider this whole idea and this concept of energetic attachments or psychic attachments, ties, cords, tethers, those sort of things. And I figured that this was something that I could talk about in a video because I don't think I've ever really covered this topic. So the three are very different from my perspective. So a psychic tie, those are the things and people and situations that happen every time we engage with like a person or a situation or even a place. They're attachments that we make to very casual attachments. So for me, as an example, every week I go to the grocery store and there is a cashier I always see. She always works the day that I go. And there's a gentleman who works in the produce department. And when I get there, if there is something that I'm looking for and he sees that I'm looking for it and he hasn't brought it out yet, he hasn't brought the delivery out, he'll go get it and bring it out for me because he sees me every week and we exchange pleasantries. That is a psychic tie. My interaction with the cashier when we're talking back and forth, that is a psychic tie. They're connections I make throughout the day that there isn't really a emotional attachment to that individual. Like I'll notice if the gentleman in the produce section isn't there when I get there, and I'll notice that the cashier isn't there, but I don't have much of an emotional attachment to them. There's not an emotional value as in comparison to those of my family. So those casual attachments, the stranger I meet on the street that I say hello, the mailman, the produce worker at the grocery store and the cashier, they're ties. They're ties. So when I come home or at the end of the day, I will release those ties. And that's something that I've heard suggested, especially to empaths, to cut those ties daily. The same idea as, washing away the negative energies or just like washing away those attachments that we make on a daily basis so that they don't build up and we don't have our energy depleted. So I'm guilty of not doing that every day. So I've started that practice to see if that has changed any of my energetic, to see if I've have more of a pool of energy to pull from. Psychic cords, the cords, the energetic cords for me are defined as those relationships that I have with emotional value for me. So my relationships with family, with friends, the people that I really would feel at a loss if they were no longer part of my life. those I would define as psychic cords. The energetic attachments I have to people that have more of an emotional value to me. And psychic cords tend to drain more of my energy and will replenish my font of energy. It's that there is like a bigger attachment. Like if we think of it as ties are like shoelaces, cords can be like garden hoses. You know, they have more ability to give and take energy. There's more of an exchange. Psychic tethers, I would define as those connections that I would make to objects or sources of energy, or things that I would tether myself to in order to replenish energy for me, or to draw energy for me. Or I might tether myself to something that I want to give energy to. So if I'm doing a magical working or spell casting for a healing, and I want to continuously give that person healing energy, I would tether myself to them. It's sort of like a binding that I have created purposefully with a specific intention. Now, those tethers I can sort of transmute them into a cord if I want, if then there builds a relationship with that person that then for me would be transmuted into a cord. But there may be times where I just want it to be a tether for a specific amount of time, and then I cut that tether. So generally things like if I'm doing a magical working and I want to tether myself to something that I may have stored energy into for this, for the specific purpose of doing a spell, I will tether myself to that item so that I can draw the energy while I'm doing a spell. So those are the three types of psychic connections or bonds that I go through and I look at. So as I said, I've started practicing sort of cutting those ties on a daily basis. And I have found that definitely has made a difference for me, that apparently I wasn't shielding myself enough when I go out and interact in the world as it is today, which is July 15th, 2022. There's a lot going on in the world. Another way that I have started cutting ties, psychic ties, is I generally try to stay atop what's happening in society. So I tend to watch news programs in the morning, one news program in the morning, to get my daily news. After I watch that, I cut ties. I cut ties with the things that I've been listening to and the situations that I have felt impacted me in some way, because those situations, I've created this tie. And if I allow that tie to stay with me throughout the day, I can very much be drained by it. I have found ways in order to tether myself to things that bring me energy instead of me giving energy consistently. I find things that can replenish my energy and create a tie to that. So an example is fresh flowers. Whether I go out and find them myself within nature, or whether I go and purchase a small bouquet of flowers for myself, and then I tether myself to that so that it can bring me energy. It can replenish my energy by the energy of the flowers and the emotion that they elicit within me, which then can replenish my own energy. And I've evaluated the cords. I know you've heard, I'm sure, of cutting cords. That would be looking at the relationships those interactions, those relationships with people that I am emotionally connected to, and evaluate whether those cords need to be cut so that I can replenish my energy. This doesn't mean that these cords have to be cut indefinitely, but for this time, it's important for me to cut those cords so that that connection is not constant, is not draining me. And those are the most difficult for me. Because I find that it is within my nature to give of myself, to give that energy to others, instead of focusing on replenishing my own energy. And since looking at that and coming to terms with that and severing those cords just for a time, creating boundaries and sticking to those boundaries, no matter how difficult it may be, has allowed me to replenish my own energy. But some of those relationships, the individual that I was creating boundaries with didn't like it. They fought me. And they manipulated or attempted to manipulate me into feeling guilty for creating these boundaries. But it's important for my own well-being, for my own self, to create these boundaries. If I was able to completely cut the cord with the individual that I created the boundary with, I would. But because of the person that they are, because of the role that I have with them, the role that they play in my life, who they are to me, at this time, I personally cannot completely sever that cord because of who they are attached to, that I don't want to sever the cord with, right? Because this person's role in my life, who they are, they affect so many other relationships because they have cords to other people. And if I were to completely sever that cord with that individual, it would mean as a result that there are other people it would affect. And because I don't want to sever the cords with those other people, I cannot then sever the cord with that individual. So I have to create these boundaries. I have to only allow them so much energy because they don't replenish me. They don't. And in my mind, who they are to me, I feel like my expectation of receiving energy from this individual isn't met. And I just can't give anymore. Because there are other people in my life that I want to give to because of who they are to me. So, psychic ties, psychic cords, psychic tethers have a great impact on each of us. And if you're finding that you are feeling depleted energetically, that you just don't have enough energy for yourself, look and evaluate what ties, what cords, and what tethers you may have. And is there a way for you to cut those ties that you create daily? Because some of them may not even be ones you need to have, right? So looking at ways or practicing a daily tie cutting or undoing those ties that you've created throughout the day, and then evaluating your relationships, the situations, the people in your life that you have cords connected to, and if it's important for you to cut those cords or to create boundaries, no matter how difficult they are to create. And then look at ways in which you can tether yourself. The beautiful bouquet I bought myself this week, which helps me replenish my energy, and feeding the birds and spending time in nature that I enjoy. You know, working on my garden, which is over there, spending time in the garden, spending time with the birds, the things that bring me joy and replenish my energy. I mean, if you have a garden that is just depleting your energy because you feel like you have to give and you're not receiving anything, that's different. If I felt like feeding the birds was a chore and it was just taking time, then that's not replenishing my energy. Finding ways for you to replenish your energy, to tether yourself to things that can bring you energy and not drain. Because tethers we may create for ourselves, ideally to bring us energy. They can become cords, but they can also become cords or tethers that are draining, and that's not the purpose, at least from my perspective, of what a tether should do. So, sharing a little bit of what's been going on with me, if you evaluate yourself, are there ties, cords, tethers that you find are depleting or draining that you want to reevaluate and assess for yourself? What are your definitions of psychic ties, psychic cords, and psychic tethers? Do you use psychic tethers in your magical practice or your witchcraft? I'm really curious to hear what's going on with you. And until next time, I love you. Mwah. Blessed be.